Hi, welcome to this week's calming practice. It's called Stream and Cloud Life. That's a phrase from a poem by Manan that I will share with you at the end of our practice today. The stream made me think of slow flowing movements, which also include slower, deeper breathing. And the clouds are reminiscent of the lightness that we can feel after a yoga practice. So we'll spend a little bit of time with that at the end of our practice. For today, please have a block and a strap at the ready. We will be in a squat. So if you need props, you can always sit on a block. If you need more height than that, a chair and a sofa, or a sofa could work. So something you can sit on in a basic seated position works just fine. Also, we'll be doing a relaxed lunge sequence. So if you need some extra support beyond your mat for your back knee, also find a blanket or a pillow, make sure that's available. All right, so let's get started, please. Let's lie on the back. And we're gonna lie face up with our arms in goalpost position, arms by your sides. And let's take our feet about mat's distance apart, and we'll start with opening the side bodies. And so on your exhale, you're gonna relax back to this spot where we're starting. And then as you inhale, reach one arm back and drop the same side knee inward. From there, you can also arch your lumbar spine. So that's a deep breath in. And then exhale, flow back to the center, pause in the middle, and then as you inhale, reach your other arm back, same side knee drops inward, and you can arch your lumbar spine as well. So that's on in-breath. Exhale, you come back to center, and go from side to side, taking this movement like a slow flow stream, which means you can breathe a little more deeply. As you come back to center, you can relax a little more deeply at the end of your exhale. Go back and forth like this a few times per side. Notice how your outer thighs feel, outer hips, low back, and the whole lateral line along each side of our torso. And a couple more times back and forth like this. And so you start on one side, so you can wrap up the other side with a deep inhale. And then as you exhale from there, relax, hands next to hips, and notice the initial effects of our first movement. Take a deep inhale and exhale for nothing. Okay, great, and then let's lie on our side. Doesn't matter which side, we'll do both. And you're gonna lie on your side in a fetal position. Every exhale, you're gonna return to the fetal position. So you feel the weight of your body, relax down. And as you inhale, reach your top arm overhead and press your top heel in the opposite direction. So you're expanding the side body in a different way, different orientation, breathing into the stretch. So that's your inhale. And then exhale, you relax in fetal position. And repeat this same side a few times. Take a deep breath in. Press the heel out as far as you can from fingers. Exhale, relinquish your efforts and relax down. Repeat this another few times. And let's do that one more time on this side. Take a deep breath in. Okay. And as you exhale, lie on the back. Pause on the back for a moment. Notice the side that we just worked on. Notice the side that we're about to work on. Notice the difference in sensation, in flow. And let's flip over to the other side. I'm going to change orientation for demonstration purposes, but you don't have to. And so you're on your side. On exhale, you'll return to this fetal position with knees bent. And as you inhale, you're going to reach top arm overhead. Press your heel forward along the floor, fingertips and heel in opposite directions. And then exhale, relinquish your efforts in side fetal position. And then you repeat that again. So deep breath in, And the movement can be slow to allow more time for the inhale. And then exhale. You can almost let the exhale happen on its own. It's almost like depressurizing the torso. And repeat this side a couple times. It might feel different. The experience of this stretch might be different between this side and the first side. So potentially you can notice that. Let's do this a few more times here. All right, and one last gust of breath down your side body. And from here, as you release, we can lie face down. So belly into the floor, head can either be down or relax to a side. Just make it intuitive. And breathe into navel. It's almost like you're breathing to your mat, like you're breathing into the floor. Okay, great. And then from here, we're going to take a side bend as a pose. From face down position, you're going to bend your right knee out to the right. If the inside of the knee on the floor, if that feels like it's too hard, you can always use cushion. But your right knee presses out to the right. Curl your left toes under your other leg and press your heel back. And then you're going to send your head and your arms over toward your bent knee. So now I'm folding to my right. I'm getting a stretch in my left side, and that stretch could be accentuated by pressing your left heel back. So press your left heel back and breathe into the left side a few times. Notice how the breath interacts with the stretch. It might make for a grander sensation down your left side. Okay, and then you come back to center, pause in the middle, and breathe into your abdomen a time or two here. Feel free to take longer with the breath, so the breath slows more slowly, and therefore you can make it a little deeper. All right, and at the end of your next exhale, please bend your left knee out to the left. If you were using a cushion, a pillow, etc., switch sides. Your left knee expands to the left, curl your right toes under, and you're going to slide your head and your arms toward your bent knee. So now we're lengthening our right side. Your right elbow is expanding forward. Press your right heel back. That helps enhance the stretch on our right side. And then breathe into your right side several times. Notice how the breath interacts with the stretch. And notice the entire length of the breath the entire time. Okay. Great. And then from there, you release back to center. Extend both legs back. And curl both sets of toes under. Press both heels back. Traction your hips, traction your low back a little bit. Take a deep breath in. Big exhale. And if this feels like enough of a back bend for you, you can stay here. If it's available, bring your elbows closer underneath your shoulders and come into Sphinx pose. So if this feels too high, but this doesn't feel like anything's going on, there's any spectrum of movement of bringing the elbows a little closer together, or this is like 90%, this is 100%, this is like 25% up. So whatever feels okay for your low back. The head can relax, shoulders away from ears a little bit. Gently press your hips toward the floor, like into the mat, and press your heels back. So there's some structure to lengthen the low abdomen, and then breathe a few times into belly. And see if the breath can become a little slower. We have a chance to observe more parts of the inhale. The first part, the second part, third part. You can basically divide it into like 4 or 5 segments. So you can kind of view first segment, second segment, third segment, fourth segment. Top of the breath is fifth segment. And then exhale from the top down. All right. Great. So this is Sphinx pose. You can also place your hands on your shoulders, and if it makes sense for your low back, for your hips, for your sacrum, you can lift up a little bit higher. Okay, this does require a little more arm work, arm stability. Shoulders away from ears so your neck and head can remain relatively relaxed. There might be some compression in the low back. As long as it doesn't feel like a pinch, that's typically okay. Breathe in the belly. And then exhale, you can lower down and instead of curling your toes under, point your toes back, and you're going to rock through hands and knees towards child's pose. If you need a block between your hips and knees, go ahead, or between your hips and your heels, go ahead and do that. You can also be anywhere between hands and knees in child's pose. If it's available, you relax your head on the ground, take a breath or two here into the back body. And then from here, the next time you inhale, you're gonna slide forward and you'll either be on the belly or at the top of the breath, you can lift into cobra or sphinx pose. And that's your inhale. And then as you exhale, you're going to go back into child's pose. So the intention here is to slow down and make the movements mindful. And to also breathe mindfully. We can really notice the passage of each part of the breath. So let's just say if we divide our breath up into 3 parts or 4 parts or 5 parts, whatever number kind of feels intuitive for you. You can notice all the parts of the breath, the beginning of the breath, the middle toward the end, the top of the breath, and then you can notice the reverse as you go back into child's pose. Go back and forth like this another few times. And so the number of times is not nearly as important as being with the movement and being with the breath the entire time. It's basically what turns exercise into any exercise into yoga is adding that focusing, the meditation aspect, just being aware of the movement, being aware of the breath. Okay, very good. And at the end of your next exhale, you're in child's pose. Take a breath or two here again. And then from here, please come up to hands and knees. As you inhale, squeeze your shoulder blades together and look up into cat. So that's your in-breath, spinal extension. And as you exhale, draw your navel up around your spine and press your mid back up into spinal flexion. So go back and forth like this a few times. Very good. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Okay. And then come back to a neutral spot. So this is where we're going to start our lunge sequence. So if you need some support underneath your knees, go ahead and take that. From here, you're going to step your right foot forward And I'm going to have the block at the ready to demonstrate block options. So the right foot's forward. You're going to relax your hips towards your front foot. And the block can be at any level. So, and this is with my left hand on the block on the floor. Okay, and you can see I have my right forearm. I can place it on my thigh. The idea here is first as a yin variation. The idea of yin postures is to relax into the stretch. So if it feels okay to relax, you kind of settle into your hips. Let go of the muscles of thighs. Let go of the muscles of your hips. If that winds up being too intense, engage just a little bit and shift your hips back a tiny amount. Okay, but otherwise you can relax into the pose, and we'll be here for another 10-20 seconds. So there's some weight on my lower limbs, like my front foot's bearing some weight, my back knee is bearing some weight, and then my left hand is bearing some weight as well. All right, and take a deep breath in. And then from there, you press into the block or to the floor if your left hand's on the floor, shift back. And from there, you come through hands and knees. I'm going to take the block to the other side. And then step your left foot forward. You come up. My right hand's going to be on the block at the highest level. You can take it any level or not at all. And then from here, you're going to start relaxing the hips. And if that is too intense for your hips or your low back, if anything feels like there's just too much going on, shift your hips back, engage your hips a little bit, and shift your hips back just like a half inch is enough for a lot of people. If complete relaxation is too intense, you back up a little bit, and that should feel sustainable, as long as it feels sustainable. And if it feels okay to relax, you continue relaxing. Some weight in your front foot, some weight in your back knee, some weight in your right hand. And of course, left forearms on your thigh for the balance assist as well. So take another deep breath or two into lower abs. All right, very good. And then you come back out of that. And to hands and knees, we're going to go back to the first side. Okay, so let's start in the yin pose. Okay, so we all relax in, and then we're all going to come back a little so that there's some engagement in our legs. So your left hand can be on the floor or on the block. Again, I'm at the highest level. For this variation, if you are using a block, the high level is going to allow you to lift up a little higher. So we become more cloud-like in the lungs as we inhale. So option number one, as you inhale, you're going to reach your right arm up toward the ceiling and squeeze the muscles in your lower back, lift your lungs up. And then exhale, you can return to where you started. So this is a fairly neutral spine here. And then I'll do that again. Inhale, reach your right arm up. Breathe into front side of body. And then exhale, you return to normal. So this is not a big movement. Dare to take it slow and create, have the breath be the focus. So the slower movement allows a more thoughtful and a often deeper breath than the fast movements. Option number two, if you'd like, all the weights in your legs, so your arms are free, and you can reach both arms up. And then exhale, you return back to where you started. So try that a few more times. You can think of the slow moving clouds or a slower moving stream. Great. And next time you exhale, press into the block, shift your hips back, come back through hands and knees. Notice the difference between sides. So one hip got a decidedly different experience in that lunge. So notice the difference between hips. Take a deep inhale and exhale here. Okay, and now let's please switch sides. So step your left foot forward. Okay, and we're going to start in the yin lunge. So you can relax all the way, if that feels okay, just for the moment. Okay, so visit this again. And then we're all going to back off a little bit so we can weight bear more. From here, option number one is to reach your left arm up. And take the time for this small, but for me it feels like a pretty profound movement for the front of the spine, the front of my right hip. And then exhale. The movement is just as slow, so you can really focus on the exhale, the outtake. And then when you intake air, you make this slow but thoughtful journey into a lunge. Exhale, back to where you started. And if you need your right hand to help facilitate this movement, go ahead and keep it on your block. If it's available, you add more weight into your legs, less weight into your right hand, and now you can reach both arms up. And the movement's not terribly big, and so that's on purpose in order to focus on the breath, all 3 parts of the breath, or 4 or 5 parts of the breath. And twice more here. Okay, great. And then next, at the bottom of your next exhale, you can shift back. Move the block out of the way, hands and knees. Notice the new sensations from hips. And as you inhale, lift your sitting bones up, draw your shoulder blades together, and look up toward the ceiling. That's a back bend on inhale. And then exhale, round the spine. Press your mid back up. And do this once or twice more. Noticing 3, 4, or 5 parts of the breath. Okay. And then after your next exhale, come back to center. And now we're going to work with a yin squat. So this is where there's one of like 3 options, is with no prop at all, your forearms compress into your inner, so your elbows compress into your inner legs, and we'll hold this as a pose. So I'm not sitting on anything. So the rest of the options are to sit on a block, or if you need more height than this, if your knees are not good with this or your ankles don't work with this, you can go and sit on a chair, take your feet fairly wide, and you can still get a good inner leg stretch on a chair. You just take your palms in the prayer position and press your elbows into inner thighs. If you are sitting on a chair or a sofa, lean forward a little bit. It's like you're trying to take your tailbone back and your heart forward. And that'll also give a deeper flexion of the hips. For me, that feels like a good stretch. So we're going to pause here for another 30 seconds or so. And the idea here is, without quite tipping over, the legs are doing as little as possible. So it's almost like we've created our own scaffolding with our body. So there's several breaths here. Okay. So then after this squat, and you can do this on a chair or a block as well, and take your hands forward, and you're going to press your feet into the floor, lift your sitting bones up, and as long as it's okay for your knees, slide your heels a little wider than your toes, so there's an internal rotation of your legs. And so this is the first big hamstring stretch of the day. If you need to bend your knees quite a bit, go ahead. Otherwise, inner thighs lifting up toward the ceiling. Press your heels into the ground, and you're going to get at least I get a pretty formidable stretch down the back of calves, hamstrings, low back. And you're going to pause here. Let the pose work on the stretch. And you can meditate on the 3 parts of your breath, or whatever number you chose. 4 parts, 5 parts. We'll be here for another, this is a really good one to spend some time in, so I'm going to say another minute or so. Notice how one leg differs from the other leg. Does the breath influence the stretch at all? And if so, what part of the breath? Do you feel it, after you breathe a quarter of the way in, or is it 80% of the way in, and you start to feel the effects of your breathing? Okay, take a deep breath in. And exhale, we're going to come back into a squat. From here, step your feet a little closer together. Okay, so my feet are not together. We're not doing malasana. As your feet come closer together, the tendency for more and more people is for the heels to not ground. So if the heels aren't grounded, just go with the feet wider, so you feel more comfortable seated. And so of course on the chair, this will work well. If you're sitting on a chair or sofa, you just place your feet on the floor and you lean over your thighs a little. And then from here, you're going to take palms together. And as you inhale, the entire inhale is pressing your elbows into knees. However far they go out, it doesn't matter to me. Just make sure it's okay for your hips, your sacrum, your legs, everything's okay. So that's your inhale. And then as you exhale, you release your arms from your inside legs, and you can take your hands to thighs. And if this is okay for knees and everything, you can press your knees toward one another. They may even go together. And so you go back and forth like this, slow enough that you can breathe as deeply as you wish. And once again, the movement, the slowness of the movement is really for the breath. So the breath is leading the way. You can match the pace of the move to your breath. So one last inhale to expand, knees in opposite directions. And then as you exhale, you can bring your legs back to where they started. And once again, we'll take a forward fold, hands press into the floor, lift up. Let's take a wide-legged forward fold. It could be the width of your legs could be different than the first time. So the first time I think I was probably out about here. If you'd like to, you can go wider and fold. If you'd like to, you can take it narrower and fold. So you can be a little bit intuitive on this. You can even try out a stance, and then we're going to commit to it for like the next minute or so. And then let the pose work on you. And focus on the breath. And notice all the parts of your inhale. Slow down your breath enough so you can observe what does the second, let's sort of quarter of the breath feel like in the body. What does the last 2 seconds of inhale feel like in the body? However you want to think of it. Quarters, percentages, times, parts. And 2 more slow, mindful breaths. All right, and at the end of your next exhale, you can bend your knees, come out of that. Let's go back to hands and knees. All right, and notice hips, notice low back, especially if you were forward folding in your spine. A lot, you might feel a release from your low back. Okay, great. So we're going to come back into the lunge. So if you were using support for your knees, go ahead and use that. Right foot forward. So now we've opened up the hamstrings and we've done a squat. You're going to take, and here's my left hand on the block. So my right foot's forward. From here, you're going to inhale, reach an arm up in the air, or reach both arms up in the air. And then as you exhale, what you're going to do is rock onto your front heel, shift your hips back, and fold over your right leg. So we're going to go back and forth between these two. The lunge that we practiced before, either with one arm or both arms up. And then we're going to forward fold over our right leg. You slide the right hip back, open your toes, and you can round your spine as much as you'd like. And we're going back and forth between these two states slowly, so we can feel the transitions the whole way through, and also so we can breathe more deeply. So go back and forth like this between these two states, slowly, mindfully, and make sure it feels like the breath is of primary note. Okay, great. So on your next exhale, you can take your hands to the floor, shift your right foot back, and come into hands and knees. Notice the after effects. All right. Okay, let's try to explore that on the other side. So please step your left foot forward. Right hand on the block, I have it at the highest level. You can do what you'd like. All right, so here's our lunge. It's off the yin, we're a little bit off, and then as you inhale, you can reach either your left arm or both arms up in the air. So this is your inhale. So deep breath there. And then as you exhale, you can slide your left hip back, extend your left leg as much or as little as you'd like. As you press the heel forward, open your toes, and you can fold over your left leg. And then you're going to go back and forth like this between these two states. So the range might feel a little bit different on this side. And if you have a lot of range, make sure you're not going too fast. Remember something, it's really not the number of repetitions doesn't count, at least for this practice. Number of repetitions doesn't count. It's really the experience in the moment, from moment to moment. The experience of breath from part to part, from inhale to exhale. You can think like water flowing in a stream. Or like droplets of water floating in clouds. Okay, so then at the end of your next exhale, you come to hands and knees. Come out of that. Pause there for a moment. Yeah, and notice the rivers of sensation around hips, low back, thighs. Okay, very nice. Okay, and then from here, so I'm gonna face you, and I'll be mirroring for just this next practice. But we're gonna come up to our knees, and from here, this is my left thigh, but you're gonna take your right foot out to the right, like so. Hand into your block into your right hand, and you're gonna take the block at the highest level, because it's not about going down. So have the block at the highest level. If that feels like it's even too far down, I prefer this to rounding your heart and dropping your heart toward the floor. So I'm gonna use it at the highest level, but you can go even higher than this. From here, left hand, roll your navel to the left. And as you roll your navel to the left, you're lining up this stretch on your side body. So you roll your belly to the left, and you press your left knee, activate it into the blanket or the pillow or the mat, cushions if you're using them, and then reach your left arm up overhead and by your ear. Now, you can almost like paintbrush strokes, breathe up and down the side, the left side of your torso, low back, outer hip. And so this is a more formidable stretch for most people. You might notice the breath influences the stretch earlier in your inhale. For me, it's almost right away. I feel the sensation of stretch increase on like in the first fourth of my breath. And 2 more breaths into your left side. Okay, great. So on your next exhale, left hand to hip, you can bring the block with you as you come up. And let's switch sides. So right knee on the ground, left foot, point the toes out to the left, block in left hand, and then we take the block at the highest level, along to the inside of your foot. Okay, and you can even be here if it feels like you can't roll the navel to the right. So that's like the next cue. So we're gonna roll navel to the right. If it makes sense to come up higher to do that more effectively, that's gonna get you into your side body. Now roll your navel to the right. And you activate your right knee into the floor or into your prop. And as you inhale, you're gonna reach your right arm up overhead. Lengthen, and you can bring it close to your ear. That's okay for shoulder. And as you press your right knee down, you lift your fingers up and over. And you're rolling your belly, your skin of the navel into right side. Now breathe into your right side. And you can notice what part of your breath, what quarter of your breath, or if you're using 5 parts, like what quintile of your breath starts to influence the stretch. Yeah, and take the breath slow enough, not so that you don't have to starve yourself of oxygen or anything like that. Make sure you're breathing well for your body. But slow enough so you can really feel the effects, really feel the breath enter your torso and influence your pose, influence your stretch. A couple more breaths here. Okay, great. And from here, right hand to hip, you can come all the way up, take both knees to the floor. I'm going to turn on my mat. Toes point back, and let's set the block up some way and see if we can sit like this. So ultimately, if this isn't available, I would suggest, so I'm looking for some kind of quad stretch, and I would like to make the quad stretch available for everybody. So I'm going to say option number 1 is, if Virasana, that's the name of that pose, if that doesn't work, you're going to lie on your belly and either reach back with your hand or take the strap around your foot and hold it like this, and you press your hip down, okay? So that'll be that's option number 1 for quads. Option number 2 already is to sit on the block at some level, or option number 3 is to sit on heels or even in between heels in Virasana with your knees more sharply bent. So you see that's really the deciding factor for this one. Okay. Also, if the ankles feel like they need some support, you can throw some support underneath there. And so this is option number 1. You're going to pause here and make sure the knees are okay, your knee joints are okay, your ankle joints are okay. I'll be here for another 30 seconds or so. But listen to joints, listen to connective tissue. As long as it feels like a swath of tissue, as long as it feels like a line, it's linear. As long as sensations feel linear, that's typically okay. If it feels like a point, come out of it just a little bit, so we're not picking on any point in the body. So we're almost done with option number 1. So one more mindful inhale and exhale. And you come out of this into hands and knees. And you extend one leg back, press your heel back, and do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so that's option number 1. Option number 2, whatever height you're sitting at, you can keep your right knee bent, extend your left leg forward. So you can imagine you can do this sitting up on a block as well. If Virasana is not working, you're going to take your right, if you're lying on your belly, you're going to just take your right knee, your right foot in again. Okay? So that's option number one. Option number two is you're sitting up here. Option number three is you're not. Okay? And particularly if you're sitting on a block, it might be a little bit of a distance to take your hands back, but the idea is to lean back a little bit and to try to get the stretch in the quad a little more along the entire length of your femur, like all the way up to the AIIS, the front of your hip, right below the hip bone. The last part of this move, you can lean back a degree, you can lean back 5 degrees, you can lean back 45. The more flexible among you will be able to slide the glutes forward to get the full quad stretch and lie back all the way. And we'll be here for another 15 seconds. If you're back here, just make sure your head feels okay. Your arms are going to have to do some work. But if you need to focus on your leg, go ahead and focus on your leg. But if you can focus on your breath, take an inhale into it's like you're trying to breathe into your right thigh. And notice how the breath influences the stretch. All right, and then we can come out of that. So if you're back at all, you can lean forward away from your bent knee, and you're going to extend your right leg out. And let's switch sides. Okay, so for those on the floor, you're now taking it you're now taking your hand in your left leg and draw it in. For those in Virasana, before doing the other side, I'd like you to sit in between heels and notice the difference between your thighs. So this is the right leg we worked on twice, the left thigh we just worked on once. Okay? So just to recap, because there's a lot of options going on. If you're on your belly, you're reaching back with your left hand and drawing your left heel towards your hip to get a quad stretch. If you're in the seated poses, you're with me now. And let's all take 2 or 3 more breaths here. See if you can be with the inhale all the way up, be with the exhale all the way down. Okay, and then from here you're going to come out of that, extend one leg back, extend the other leg back. If you're on your belly, you can let go, press your heels back. And then from here, I'm going to turn around for demonstration purposes, you don't have to. And then from here, you're either going to sit on the block or sit on the floor somehow with your left knee bent. Right leg is not, the right quad's not getting a big stretch. And this could be your pose. You can sit up and take slow, mindful breath and see how that influences any stretch. If it's available, you can lean back, and if you're on the block, you might have to kind of lean back a little. Feels like you're kind of like tipping over a little. So this is an option. You're on a spectrum from spine vertical to spine horizontal. So the more flexible people will be able to slide the glutes forward. Sliding the glutes forward will give you a more dramatic stretch in your quadricep. And as you lean back, you'll get more of a stretch here. Some of you may be able to be here. You can move your head and neck around, make sure your shoulders are okay. If you are able to lie back, go ahead. But regardless of what version of this quad stretch you're doing, see if you can incorporate that mindfulness of the breath and the slowness of the inhale. Slow the breath down so you can really feel if and how your breath interacts with this stretch. We're not here for too much longer, so maybe one more slow, thoughtful inhale. And a big exhale. All right, and if you're back at all, you come back. You arrive up, lean away from your Virasana leg, come out. If you're on your belly, come and meet us into seated. We'll take a seated wide-legged fold. And we'll go to one side and then the other. So option number one on this one is, if it feels like you're falling back, just keep your hands behind you. Lift your lungs. Keep quads engaged a little bit and press your heels out. Okay? So you're lengthening out through the belly. If it's available to fold down a leg, I'm going to mirror you again. So this is my left leg, but imagine mirroring you. This is your right leg. You're going to roll your navel to the right. So this is a twist. Roll your navel to the right, and then from there, fold down your right leg as far as you can. Okay. Now the tendency is going to be like we did in our side bends, is for the navel to roll away from your right leg. As best you can, roll the skin of the navel over toward your right thigh, and you forward fold. That's going to give you, at least that gives me, a pretty decent stretch on my left low back that I can now breathe into. So hands can be on thigh or on either side of your thigh, around shin, around foot. But as you're folding down your right side, breathe into your left low back. So how is your breath influencing the stretch? Another couple breaths here. All right, great. And then as you, on your next inhale, you can make your way back up. Notice the after effects of your breathing practice and your posture practice. My hope is by now we get a sense of that sort of cloud-like lightness of our lungs already. Since we only did one side, it might feel like your left lung is a little sort of like cloudier, by which I mean lighter, than your right side. Okay, great. And let's try that on the other side, please. Once again, if it feels like you're falling back, you can stay here, get the leg stretch, hamstring stretch, inner thigh stretch. That's all. That's great work to stick with. As you exhale, you're going to roll your navel to the left. So as best you can, slide the skin of the navel so that it's like pointing at your left thigh. And then from here, you can take your hands to the thigh, on either side of thigh, or to thigh, around the level of your shin. Some of you may be able to hold your foot. But now as you're folding left, notice the stretch in your right side. And can you take your 3-part, 4-part, or 5-part breath into your right side? Slow the breath down to make it deeper. So not less breath. Overall, it might even be more breath. You're slowing it down. At the same time, you're increasing the volume of your inhales and exhales. There's a couple more breaths here. At what point in the breath does it feel like the breath finally interacts with your pose, or with the particularly with the stretch on your right side. So yeah, particularly with the breath on the right side. Of course, as soon as you start inhaling, it interacts. But stretching your right low back. All right, very good. So from here, you're going to come back up. All right, and pause here, hands in front or hands in back, whatever allows you to focus on your spinal column. And my hope is there's a lightness from working with our thighs, legs, and legs, thighs, and hips through low back. The lungs feel a little bit lighter, the head feels a little bit lighter. All right. Great. And then you can gather legs, bring them inward. We're going to lie on the back. And from here, please grab your strap, and we're going to place the strap around our right foot. So strap around the toe mounts, right leg up in the air, and your left foot, keep your knee bent so that your left foot is flat on the floor. Now you press this top heel up toward the ceiling. My leg is probably a little bit like beyond vertical there. If your leg is out here, that is absolutely fine. Just take your bottom foot a little further, because what we're going to do is cross our thighs beyond one another, almost like ships passing by one another in the middle of the night. So, but first I would like to get the right leg straight, press your heel up, and open your toes. And then from here, this is actually the first move that we did in this practice, is you're going to rock onto the inside of your left foot and drop your left knee over the midline. Okay, so your bottom knee is going to go underneath your like beyond your right thigh, and then you keep that knee going over to the right as you take your top leg over to the left. And so this is a big stretch through outside legs, outer hips, possibly through and around the sacrum, the SI joint. So yeah, top heel presses up, and you slide your straight leg to the left, your bent knee to the right. It's almost like you're crossing your legs in like a very grand way. Crossing your thighs in a very grand way. And so you're on the floor, breathe into your right side. And at what point, if at all, does your inhale influence these particular stretches? And there's another 30 seconds here. Okay. And from there you can release your right foot to the floor. Notice the after effects. Very nice. And you're going to keep your right foot where it is next to your left foot as you lasso your left foot, toe mounds into the strap. And now let's press our left heel up in the air. Open toes. If this leg is markedly different in angle from the right side, you might have to adjust your right side. Well, let's pause here for a moment. Have some quad engagement on your left side. You press the heel up, open toes. So the leg is straight, which does not necessarily mean straight up and down. It just means your knee is fully extended. And then, like the first move we did in our myofascial release, you're dropping the knee in, you're gonna rock onto, this is right foot, rock onto the inside of your right foot and drop your knee over. Your right knee comes over, and then you keep it there as you take your top leg over to the right. Okay, so this helps feature the outside of the leg as in addition to outer hamstring, some IT band, outer hip. It also might feel like it influences your SI joint. So make sure that feels okay. Back off if you need to. And then from here, mind's eye on your breathing. At what part of your inhale does the breath influence the stretches you're getting in your left leg? There's another 30 seconds here. All right, very good. So then as you exhale, you can bring your legs back to neutral. Remove the strap from around your left foot. All right, feet on the floor, knees out to the side now. And let's pause here for a minute to allow the connective tissues on outside legs to recoil and relax. Feel the weight of your legs. Feel the weight of your mid-back. Feel the weight of your skull. And notice the sensations throughout your body flowing like a stream. A stream of information. There are streams of connectivity. And then from here, extend your legs forward. This is going to be a two-part Shavasana. Part one is where we relax like water in a stream. We drop down into the ground. So let everything go. Soften down here, noticing the stream of connectivity throughout your body. You can also relax control of your breath and allow your body to breathe for you. So notice the stream-like quality of your body. Okay. Great. And then, with as little effort as possible, roll over to one side and make your way up to a comfortable seat. And you don't have to sit on the floor, you can sit on a chair, whatever makes it easy to sit. And then relax your legs into the floor, hips heavy. And then notice the cloud-like sensations in your body, particularly through your lungs. Feel the lightness of your lungs. Allow the base of your brain and the back of your brain to lift up a little, softening your throat. And you can pause here in your meditation, in a meditation practice of your own choice. If you'd like to, you can listen to the Manan poem and reflect on it. As I read it, I'll read it twice. So Manan writes, "Unfettered at last, a traveling monk. I pass the old Zen barrier. Mine is a traceless stream and cloud life. Of these mountains, which shall be my home? Unfettered at last, a traveling monk, I pass the old Zen barrier. Mine is a traceless stream and cloud life. Of these mountains, which shall be my home?" Okay. Very good. So take a gently deeper inhale and exhale. Feel free to open your eyes. All right. Great. So thank you much for practicing with me. Hopefully that felt just as grounding as it did uplifting, and you can take those two qualities with you through the rest of your day. Thank you so much, and namaste.